And welcome back to another edition of the Blue Review, a special edition, a Wednesday edition, as we are joined by our friend Matthew Moreno, of course, our friends from Dodger Blue. We love having all of you on, really, but Matthew, it's an honor to have you. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you guys having me on. I know Jeff was on yesterday, so hopefully your audience isn't going to get sick of us by the time I'm done here today.
Impossible to get sick of Dodger Blue. It's not possible.
It's just impossible to get sick of Dodgers talk. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to react to a huge game yesterday, a huge ninth inning, but also a lot of questions coming out of that game, Greg, that I know you want to get into and send Matthew's way. So before we get started, before we get into anything, I know everyone in the chat can see that lovely hat on Greg's head. Our
Yeah.
friends at
Company
Los
man.
Angeles, that's right. Our friends at Los Angeles International Airport are always changing the travel experience, reducing traffic, saving guest time. So if you want to learn more, I guess you can just ask Greg since he's a company man, but also
That's right.
you can head to flylax.com/transforming LAX. So Greg, I'm going to kind of let you send your questions over to Matthew, and I'm going to be
All
monitoring the
right.
chat. If any good questions come up, I will be here to send them your guys' way. Let's do a little good action of Blue Review.
All right. Thanks, Parker. And yeah, and pop in whenever you got something to say. Just always love hearing your thoughts. So, but Matt, last night was crazy. That was just an insane game. I think that was one of the most exciting Dodger games I've seen this year, and maybe in a quite some time. I think I saw a stat somewhere that the Dodgers haven't come back in the ninth inning since 1929. So 95 years since they've done something like that. Just an electric atmosphere that was all Dodger fans. Did you notice that it was Dodger fans throughout?
Yeah, I know we were talking about that before we started, and I've been out there when they had opening day. I think it was a few years ago, and there were a good number of Dodger fans, and that's start of a season. It's kind of expected. But yeah, last night, especially after Teoscar Hernandez hit the home run, and then you kind of saw the shot of the Dodgers dugout and all their fans behind there. If you didn't necessarily know anybody, you would have thought it was Dodger Stadium because there was just so much blue in that one section, and definitely throughout the stadium, you could kind of hear the fans. A little bit throughout the night. There wasn't much to cheer for early on. You did have some highlights here and there, but definitely in that ninth inning, as the Dodgers were coming back, the fans and just how many of them were out there was really apparent.
Yeah, so obviously Teoscar Hernandez. That when Teoscar Hernandez hit the home run, I went back and I watched the highlights again. The whole place was just rose up. It was amazing, and also it wasn't. It was louder than when Teoscar check swung when that was not. He went like we're in agreement. He went. It was absolutely a bad call by the first base umpire, right?
I mean, I look. Umpires have a
You can
tough
say it.
job. Umpires have a tough job. He made his call, and it benefited the Dodgers, so it was obviously the right one, right? But yeah, I mean, this
I'm the company man. We're calling me the company man while you're saying that. Come on.
the at least I'll go. This check swing probably won't be as controversial in the long run as the one with the Giants all those all
Yeah.
those years back, where that sort of ended up deciding the NL West. I don't think the Giants are going to end up. Excuse me. I don't think the Rockies are going to end up being in the hunt for the division title. So, as frustrating as it was for them tonight, ultimately, it's not necessarily going to cost them anything in the long run.
Yeah, no, it's not going to cost him anything. But the fact is that Teo absolutely did swing. It should have been out. The game should have been over. But also, like, so many big things happened. I think it was the eighth inning when Shohei Ohtani hit that ball into the gap, and he hit it hard into the gap. And God, what's the center fielder's name? I'm blanking on it right now.
I am too,
Doyle,
unfortunately.
yeah, Brenton Doyle, yeah. So Brenton Doyle just made a ridiculous catch where he dove, and that was an amazing catch. I was like, oh man, if that's not going to drop, it's just not the Dodgers' night. And they come back with 7 runs in the top of the ninth, absolutely amazing. So really, really exciting. But I mean, we can keep going on the fun stuff if you want, or I can get into the annoying stuff. Where do you want to go? Do you anything else you want to say about amazing win?
No, let's get into the Bueller conversation. I think that's certainly going to be. I know you and Jeff touched on some of it, and after another start, there's definitely a lot more to say about him.
So Bueller it wasn't that he just had like a couple bad pitches that got rocked. He was getting smacked around and over and over and over again. I understand the whole thing of the Coors Field, and then at Coors Field balls just fly better, that it's a little bit harder to pitch. But this isn't anything really new for Walker Bueller this year. This is something that he's been doing for a while. I've also gone back and did my own research. I actually went onto, Baseball Reference and tried to look stuff up. The sticky stuff. baseball banned the sticky stuff in 2021. It was around June to August, somewhere in that range. And ever since then, Walker Bueller's numbers have skyrocketed. He just cannot he has never been able to figure out how to not use the sticky stuff. And to his credit, it's not illegal. It wasn't illegal. It was something that got banned. It was, once it happened, that's where it goes. But his numbers have skyrocketed since then. He played, I believe it was the Giants and the Cardinals. I think I don't remember exactly who it was in the postseason that year, but he got hit up, and he got hit up pretty good in both those games, and has not been the same pitcher since. So I understand he's coming off the injury, Matt, and I understand that it takes a little while to come back to that, but he has not been good since 2021.
Yeah, for me, that's been something that definitely we've heard a lot about and has stuck out, and in some of the stats, and I know a lot of the advanced stats that I give some of our staff a hard time for really tracking, because I tell them that I trust the eye test rather than the I jokingly refer to them as the nerd stuff. Bueller's spin rate and all that has certainly been down since the sticky ban, like you said. I think there does appear to be some merit to that. Part of me does feel that, though, Bueller didn't necessarily have a whole lot of time to really adjust to the new reality before he sort of got hurt. I am inclined to believe that he spent a decent portion of the 2022 season probably pitching through some sort of injury before it got really bad, and then ended up leading to the Tommy John. And so for me, like, yes, the sticky stuff is a factor, but I think that ultimately, like, the biggest thing, and not that you're not saying this, is he had a second Tommy John surgery. And those are, like, one Tommy John is hard to come back from. Certainly a second one is hard to come back from. All that being said, I know you and I were kind of joking before, like, I still try to be a little bit more optimistic with Bueller than, hey, like, this is just who he is and he's done type thing. But yeah, I think, his situation is just really a mixed bag of everything.
Yeah, so I want him to do well. I like Walker Buehler. There was nobody I trusted in game one more than Walker Buehler. There was nobody for a long time that, if the bases were loaded and nobody out, I trusted that Walker Buehler would get out of those innings just because he did it consistently. Now I don't trust him anymore. And yes, he's coming off a second Tommy John. He doesn't have the sticky stuff, all the different things, but it's been happening for a while. And I just think that I don't think, and I said it at the beginning of the year, even before he started pitching, really, I don't think he's going to be the guy he once was ever. And for this year, sure, it's gonna hurt this league because he's here. I don't think he gets re-signed at this point unless it's for a very, very, very small number. And also, I mean, he's now saying, there's quotes coming out from him saying possibly be out for a month, weeks. I mean, what more are you hearing on that stuff? Because he's going to be shut down is what it sounds like.
Yeah, and that's interesting to me. Like, on one hand, I understand it, but then looking, like, kind of pulling up, his game logs this season, he's allowed like 3 earned runs or fewer in 7 of his 8 starts. So, like, excuse me. On one hand, like, that is where Bueller. I agree with you. Like, unfortunately, I don't see Bueller really getting back to that electric kind of dominant level that we remember him, being capable of. I am, like, I couldn't have said it better myself. Like, bases loaded in the playoffs. Okay, Bueller's pitching. This will be fine. Like, when they were making their 2020 World Series run and he was starting those big games, like, I had all the confidence in the world in him. I don't see him getting back to that level. But on one hand, you look at, he's only necessarily allowing like 3 earned runs or fewer, except for, last night where things really blew up. But I think part of the problem is, too, he's giving up a lot of home runs. He's walking guys, and he's not offsetting that with strikeouts. And so it's kind of like, well, sure, you are only allowing 3 runs here and basically in every outing, which I think is kind of the baseline for it. Like, he is going to be, I hope we have traditionalists watching this, a 3, something ERA guy probably from this point out, right? Like, I don't necessarily see him getting below that. But now, like, so on one hand, he's sort of done okay in that regard. But then hearing, he did get hit I think it was the hip last night by that comebacker. He stayed in. Hearing him say, though, then after the game, I mean, he clearly is searching. Like, we can tell that they might, shut him down, and that he feels like he's basically a liability. Like, he is somebody who I think is prideful and wants to help the team and doesn't want to hurt them. Like, he has been pretty open about that. I'm just curious, because if you go the route of sort of shutting him down or putting him on the IL, taking him out of the rotation, like, what's the plan then from there? Because I don't think making rehab starts is going to get him back on track. Like, I think he sort of needs to be able to kind of punch his way through things at the major league level. The problem is, like, it's been so rough, even though, like I said, like, he is only allowing 3 runs in most starts. There's a lot of the other things, the underlying stuff that just isn't looking positive for him.
Yeah, that's where it comes, like stats. You were just saying it's not the advanced analytics stats, and like you can't. It's eye test too, right? That was what you're telling your staff. It's eye test. The eye test that I'm seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing as well, is that it's just not there. The pitch that he threw to Corey Seager to lose that game to the Rangers was unacceptable. There was no reason whatsoever for him to throw that pitch to Corey Seager, and Corey was waiting on it and hit a home run. It was you were watching it and saying, just don't throw anything down the middle. Just throw it to the sides. Either try and get him to chase or walk him. That is the only correct move. And he threw a pitch. I think it was a 3-2 count also. And he threw it right down the middle, said, hey, here you go. Here's a cookie. I mean, you just can't do it. The stuff, the eye test, it's just nothing from what I'm seeing from him. And I think a lot of other people too is there. It's obviously him too, since he's talking about being sent down or going on the IL, all the different things. So I assume that's going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah, and I think with the Seager thing, like he's on the mound, so he is responsible for that. I don't think he should have been facing Seager though. Like I think that's also
Sure.
on Dave. Like this isn't the Walker Buehler of old. He had already been in some trouble in that start. At that point, like just bring in a lefty. Like don't let Buehler even face Seager. And once he was left in the game, I text our staff like, "Oh, like this home run's going to be bad." And sure enough, that's what ended up happening. But the other stuff, like. I just lost my train of thought. I apologize. Sorry, where were we going? What did you end with?
No, I know it was just with Buehler and how he's pitching. But either way, so when it comes to the pitching staff, because now you're not going to have any Buehler, you're not going to have Yamamoto for a little while, but Yamamoto's going to be coming back. Glasnow has 15 starts so far this season. We're almost halfway through the season. His career high starts for a single season is 21. So he's 6 starts away from tying his career high halfway through the season. Now, is that something to be concerned about? Is it something that they need to start paying attention to those kind of things? Are you okay with where this pitching staff is right now with Bobby Miller coming back tonight?
I mean, I'm okay with it now, but I'm not worried about the regular season. I'm looking at October, and I know you said Yamamoto's coming back. I know Dave Roberts has said his rotator cuff strain is not season ending. I'm not quite as convinced. Dave Roberts has a lot on his plate, and with injuries, he sometimes doesn't have necessarily all the details, or he tries to, I think, be a little bit more optimistic than situations maybe call for. So I'm hopeful that Yamamoto is back, but that's anything, obviously, with a shoulder, elbow type thing for a pitcher goes without saying, like, is serious. But a rotator cuff strain, like, for me, like, those are some significant alarm bells. With Glasnow, sure, as he gets closer to, making a career high number of starts, like it is something to sort of monitor because he does have a little bit of a checkered past with some injury stuff. I think, though, what he at least has said is that a lot of that was corrected then with us. Did he end up having surgery or at least the time off?
I'm not positive on that.
I forgot what the case was. But basically, like him and the Dodgers were optimistic about his health heading into this season. And as much as, he is getting close to that number of 21 starts, the Dodgers have been giving him and everybody extra rest pretty much between every outing. So it hasn't been, I don't think, like the full grind that maybe he's had to navigate in the past. So that's hopefully going to be helpful. I think another thing too that'll end up helping him is we've seen like the Dodgers will have a quick hook. Like they'll cap him at, 80 pitches randomly in July if they feel like that's what they need to do. So sure, because of his history, be a little bit concerned, but I think how the Dodgers are going about it, it's giving them the best, themselves and Glasnow, kind of the best opportunity to get healthy. And, Bobby Miller's coming back. It is Coors Field. We had somebody, upset that the Dodgers were, quote, rushing Bobby Miller back, which I don't think he's been rushed back by any means. And I think whether he struggles at Coors Field or not, like, is not necessarily indicative of was he, quote unquote, ready to come off the IL. I think it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, so with Bobby Miller, I just don't like his first start being back at Coors Field. We saw what's happened the last 2 days. Even JP Fireeisen had 2. He blew through everybody in the 8th inning, and then in the 9th inning he had 2 outs, and then just got blasted away because Coors Field is just a stupid ballpark. But either way, it was fun last night with the stupid ballpark. Yeah. Bobby Miller, totally agreed. Like he's gonna if he is ready, if they feel he is ready, then fine. Just I don't want him to bring him back up just because they feel they have to. He came up last year out of necessity, not out of want. So I don't want that to be the case again this year out of necessity. Glasnow, I think so. Yes, we were talking about Glasnow and Yamamoto. That's what worries me, and maybe a little bit more than other, like you might feel this too with Yamamoto, is that they were doing that. He was getting 6 days rest. He was getting he was a 6-man rotation for him. He was on the same rest that he was in Japan. I think if you went by it by start, pitch count, how many starts it was, how many through the same amount of time, I think it was almost identical to what it was in Japan. So to get injured and not feeling well, that's what is a little bit concerning, and whether or not he can come back or not. I tend to really like I'm not worried about the pitching staff right now, despite all of those problems. I think hopefully it will get better, but I thought Gavin Stone has looked fantastic. What have you seen from Stone?
Yeah, he's been really good. And I think, we saw flashes of this last season. It was just then he would give up, 8 runs and give up a bunch of home runs and stuff like that. And so now we're seeing certainly a lot more consistency. And even with that, I mean, he has definitely taken a step forward. It does appear that, pitch tipping last year, which I know was brought up, was potentially a significant factor. He's using a bigger glove this season, which is sort of helping him conceal things. But I think also just getting that experience. I mean, there's no other teacher, right? Like other than just going out there and kind of making the starts. And we've seen he's not the first, sort of heralded prospect that's going to struggle at the major league level. And he's not the last that's going to do it and then bounce back and, end up getting on track for the rest of his career. And, hopefully this is something that Gavin can kind of use as a springboard, not only moving forward, but potentially even as soon as like this October, because like we said, depending on what happens with the rotation, he may very well find himself starting, a postseason game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel better with Glasnow, Yamamoto, Stone than Glasnow, Stone, Kershaw, Bueller or Bobby Miller. I don't know. It's a concern, and they'll have to make some moves at the deadline. But I want to move on to the offensive side of the ball just now. So we've already talked about Teoscar, and we talked about the J-Hay Grand Slam, but Shohei Ohtani. I brought this up with Jeff yesterday. We didn't really get a full answer, but if Shohei Ohtani goes nuts, just absolutely insane in the leadoff spot to a point that it's like, this is the most amazing leadoff hitter that we've seen in quite some time. I mean, that's obviously putting it at a very, very high bar. Right. Does he stay there, or does Mookie go back to that leadoff spot because he loves playing in the leadoff spot?
Yeah, I mean, I think you at the very least have to consider it and try it for 5 to 10 games once Mookie was back. And I thought when the Dodgers signed Ohtani during the offseason and that really started, like, okay, how's the lineup going to look? Everybody's excited that you're adding Ohtani. Well, what's the lineup going to look? Part of me thought, like, put Ohtani in the leadoff spot because he is a little bit more of a base running threat than Mookie Betts is at this point in his career. Mookie's run a little bit more than I sort of anticipated. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Dave Roberts, isn't somebody to kind of use an injury to have a player like lose his spot. And obviously Mookie would still be in the lineup, but an injury has knocked him out. And so now he's going to come back and be hitting second instead of leadoff. Like, I don't know if Dave Roberts would necessarily do it, but I don't know how you don't at least consider it. If you said, look, if Ohtani, like what we've seen these last 2 games,
he's been really good.
If he keeps up that production for, 2 months while Mookie's out, like, how do you not at least get eyes on it? And part of that too is, the Dodgers, they're not married to, doing left, right type thing in their lineup, but they definitely do try to historically do it with at least their first like 6 guys if they can. And this would do that. Like, you have Ohtani hitting first, you drop Mookie to second, and then Freeman's third. Like, you get then that balance, and Will Smith, Max Muncy, like it keeps kind of going down the line. And so I would at least try it if Ohtani. I mean, I wanted them to try it anyway in the offseason. So if Ohtani hits the way he has, and yes, maybe he's gotten a little bit of a course field bump, but if he stays near this level, I think it's definitely something that you have to at least get a look at.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole problem with all this too. It's all happening at Coors Field, so you can't really take anything seriously out of any of it. The only thing I can take seriously is that Teoscar Hernandez can hit anybody at any time, and especially in June. Now he needs to do it in October, but sticking with Teoscar for a second, he gets an extension immediately soon, right? Like, just go ahead and do it. Just make this happen.
It would make sense, but I think a lot that might depend on how open Teoscar is to deferred money, because I don't see the Dodgers doing any big.
Well, he deferred. It
Yeah,
was like a
but
17 million. And he deferred, I think, what, $5 or $6 million to come.
yeah, but I mean, that's a little bit different than if they say, hey, can you defer like another 20 or 30, like on top of that? I say that in jest, obviously, but
Right.
I mean, yeah, if you're the Dodgers, like, I don't know how you don't at least approach it to see, if he's open to signing an extension right now. At the very least, he does want to stay here. He did an interview, I forget the writer, but it was with somebody from MLB.com, and he said, I want to remain with the Dodgers long term. So he at least is thinking in that light. It obviously doesn't mean like he would sign an extension now. He might want to get to the open market and then use, leverage.
Leverage.
The
Sure.
the other side of that though is what if like he goes into a slump and then all of a sudden your leverage as a free agent is gone and maybe the Dodgers don't even want to re-sign you anymore. So yeah, I mean, my guess is there's probably been some sort of feelers of like, hey, like you want to get this done type thing, and it makes sense from the Dodgers standpoint because if you look at the outfield picture moving forward, there's a lot of question marks out there.
A lot of them, because this is the last year for Hayward, right? So
I mean, well, he's 1 year each time, so yeah, maybe he's back. But
yeah, but still, you don't really know what's going on. Pages has been playing very, very well, and so do you. From what you've seen from Pages, he's doing kind of the same thing, but on a much higher level than what Outman did last year. I think, at least from the way I'm seeing it, that he started off hot, kind of fell off a little bit. He got figured out. He made adjustments to the adjustments, and that's what Pages is doing now. Do you think he's going to be more on the same line as Outman, since he's such a free swinger, or is it he kind of has a different skill set at the plate that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, he has obviously a little bit of a higher prospect pedigree than Outman did at the time, and so that helps. He's younger, so that like the upside is there, and so I think he has the potential to sort of avoid kind of the sophomore slump, I guess, if we want to call that, for what happened with Outman. And I think honestly, Pages has played himself into an everyday role, not only this season but next year moving forward. Because like I said, like the Dodgers don't have a ton of clear cut answers in the outfield. I don't know Outman's future with the team. I don't necessarily know what it is because if Pages, I mean, he could be a fourth or fifth outfielder, maybe the Jason Hayward role next season if Hayward's not brought back. But Pages definitely, I think, to me, is somebody who is, hit his way into an everyday role. And, as much as I'm saying there is questions in the outfield, maybe Miguel Vargas is part of that picture next year on a more full-time basis moving forward. But, an outfield of Vargas, Pages, and Teoscar Hernandez isn't necessarily the worst thing, right? And that would allow Teoscar to go back to right field because Vargas would be in left field, and Teoscar has been open about preferring right field to left field, but he's willing to do obviously whatever the team needs.
Yes, of course, and he's played a decent amount, especially when Hayward's out. But all right, so we only have a couple minutes left. Just real fast, like, what do you think? We're coming up on the trade deadline. We got a month and a half before it, and what are the two most important positions that they need to go after?
I would say outfield, just because you need a position player. I think you need an impact bat, and I think the easiest way to find one is going to be somewhere in the outfield. I think they end up finding some sort of kind of more of a solid shortstop option than any of the star guys that have been speculated about.
I want Bo Bichette.
And yes, I don't see that. Like, I don't know if that's like Bichette, Adames. Like, I don't see any of those guys really coming.
I don't see Adames, but if you do Gavin Lux and James Outman as like the core of the package, along with like a prospect or two for Bichette, think it gets done.
I don't think that's enough for the Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays
they need more. Yeah. They don't want the guy that's got sent down to AAA and the guy that's hitting 200. No.
Maybe
I was hoping.
Maybe if Lux gets up to like 255, you might be able to convince them.
Yeah, I don't really see that happening. All right, well, we got to get over to Travis and Slee, Matthew Moreno, the managing editor of Dodger Blue 1958 or Dodger Blue. And thank you very, very much. Really appreciate you coming on. Always a pleasure. Love having you on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys asking me to join you. It's a lot of fun every time we can sort of get together. It's like a reunion, I feel like.
Right. Go ahead, Parker. Take us out.
All right. Well, that was a great episode and a lot to react to. We'll be back reacting to all Dodgers stuff, 9:30 to 9:55 every day. The Dodgers had like a 0.5% chance to win that game in the ninth, and they did it. The teams got fight. So we'll see how they handle all these injuries and everything that's been going on. Again, tune into the Blue Review every single day. Corporate Greg, thank you again, Matthew Moreno, for joining us. I can't point in the mirrors. There we go. Thank you, Matthew. I've been Parker Bell. This has been the Blue Review. We'll catch you next time. And thanks, producer Cody.